Welcome, bro. Welcome back. I know you've been here before. I know it's been a while. It's been a while for me. I've kind of just been dealing with life and trying to get through it. But so, how you been? How's
Been good,
life?
man. Life is good, just living, taking every day one day at a time. So just trying to get back to some simplicity, like I feel like sometimes, especially I don't know, in your early 20s, like things they get weird. So like
Yeah.
21 to 26, man, is a different jump for sure. So just trying to get back to the basics, being a little more humble, being grateful, trying to be a little more introspective. But yeah, man, doing well, doing well. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it, and I know that you're excited to do this one and keep doing your thing on these podcasts. So let's do it.
For sure, brother. For sure. All right, man. So, I think we're gonna talk a little bit about was it musical influences? I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just start off with who's our favorite artist. So I'm gonna have you start. Let's maybe name three artists who are our favorite artists, and just kind of talk about them a little bit.
Yeah. So okay, I'll start off with an artist that's not from Chicago, and I feel like this is not surprising, but I'll get to some Chicago artists because I gotta rep Chicago a little bit too. I think first and foremost, J.Cole is probably my favorite artist. Um,
Mm.
if you're not talking about Tupac, I think that J.Cole is just my favorite artist. But man, like what he's done for music is wild. It's hard to believe, like really, that I feel like this is like a golden era of music in a way. Like
Mm.
maybe not for like every genre, because I feel like that's not true for everything, right? Like I think R&B took a backseat over the last 20 years, and Drake helped revive it a little bit, but I think that overall, like maybe some other areas kind of took a hit, whereas like rap really took off again, I think, after some of the greats.
Mm.
And I think that J. Cole, man, is really like a blessing to have, especially as an influence. Like I think that sometimes you have these artists that they talk about relatable stuff, but it can only be relatable for so long, right? And
Mm.
I think that I shared a video with you the other day with Eminem and Lil Wayne, right, where they were like,
Yeah.
you have to start like researching your own lyrics because you can only talk about the same substance so frequently, right? And it's
Yeah.
hard to talk about it in a new way, right? In a new platform, in a new style, and I think that that's something that J. Cole does really well, where it's like he might be saying the same thing, but like it's so sonically different, right? If
Mm.
that's what you're into, is the sound. Like for young heads, I feel like especially they're really into the sound still. I think that that's been like the last 10 years, sound has really dominated rap. And I think that like he has really evolved with that, because not only is he one of the most lyrical artists, but in terms of his sound, it just never sounds the same from album to album. His style,
Mm.
his flow, his where he's taking his breath, right? His technique. It's like hard to believe that he's the same artist. You know what I mean? Like over the
Yeah.
body of work, you're like, this could be like three or four different artists that make this style of music. So I think that that's something that people, maybe he's been around so long now that we're taking him for granted a little bit. I heard a lot of like
Mm.
talk on his last album where we're like, I've seen a lot of like social justice based conversations where people are a little upset that he talked more about making money and being on top than he did like right, the movement, our people, stuff like that. And that's fine. I definitely understand that there's a time and a place for all different types of music. And I think that at J. Cole's age, he just had to let people know, right? Because he's getting on the downswing in age for a rapper.
Yeah.
But I think that like really with this last album, like even more so than some of the earlier ones, like he went hard, but it sounds different, right? It's just like
Yeah.
he's not asking for validation, and I think that that's something that I appreciate from one artist to another. Is that sometimes even when you and I write, I think that it's hard sometimes to be confident with your words because you are the only one who knows how to say what you're trying to say, right? So
Right.
like you can get tips from artists, and you can bite their flow, or you could really like analyze their lyrics, but like you at the end of the day you have to be as authentic as you can be when you write music. And I think that
Yeah.
for him, like that just seems to come so natural, and like not every artist is like that. Like I've seen a lot of, in the last 20 years, there's a lot of artists that follow the trend of other artists, but he's really on like this other level. I think he's really transcended music. Like he's a brand, even though he isn't a sellout himself. His name has
Mm.
become a brand. So that kind of goes to say like that touches on his greatness, and I think that Tupac shares a lot of that with him as well. Like Tupac transcended music, obviously because he died early, like Biggie, Tupac, and other artists. But sometimes like transcending music requires more than just one or two good albums, right? And record sales. Like you have to really hit the community that you're from, and not only
Yeah.
that community, you have to be like known in every community, which is hard, right? Like again, like being from Chicago and being from Boston, right? Like you have something to say for people from Boston, but who knows, like, or I have something to say about people from Chicago, right, in my upbringing, but who knows if everyone's going to feel that's a different type of universal. It's like a different universal language almost. Urban language is very different. So I would say that long-winded, but J. Cole's probably my favorite. I don't know if you want to share your favorite now.
Yeah, I'll say, one thing about J. Cole I'll say is that he said it in some song, but basically he's like in between the younger generation and the older generation. And he like, that made a lot of sense to me because it's like, he's kind of, I think he came in the game his late 20s, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But now he's in his 30s, right? So it's like, he is caught in between that old hip hop style that like the Jay-Z influence, the Eminem influence, clearly is seen in his first two mixtapes, Friday Night Lights, The Warm Up, both great mixtapes. But then like you're saying, his latest one, he's trying to almost keep up with that. I'm not going to say mumble rap because it's not even mumble rap anymore. It's almost like an R&B style rap with kind of like a Young Thug style rap. He's trying to keep up with that, and he's doing a good job, I would say. Like it doesn't sound forced. It doesn't sound like the other people's way of doing it. And I think like you're saying, like he's really good at that. He's really good at coming up with his own sound and like being different. And one thing about J. Cole that's really interesting is he doesn't really have a brand. Like he himself is an artist. And I think that's something a lot of artists struggle with is they become this like brand of like, like this big name. But it's like J. Cole is so much music. And I think that's why his music is so great is because he just focuses on that. And you can tell he's writing his lyrics. You can tell he's picking his beats, probably even producing his beats. He spends like a year and a half to make his album. So it's like he is very different from the younger generation, and he definitely has a lot of the older generation influence. So he's definitely up there, I think, with one of my favorites. Let me think. What are my favorite? I mean, my favorite right now is, I would say, Polo G. Again, out of Chicago. He, man, to me, like out of the younger generation, he's that guy. And it's like, he just has like a story, and he's very like, he's not a mumble rapper. He like enunciates everything. He's lyrical, but he still makes like sonically good music. And that's very hard to do. Like be writing these complex lines, be writing these stories, but keep it sonically really pleasing so that you can bump it in your car. It's not too complicated to listen to. And man, like to me, I see longevity in him. And he's put out 3 albums and they've all been fucking tight. Like he's not missed with one of those albums. So it's like, he's very promising to me. And I think with him too, he's a street dude. But he also talks a lot about mental health, like a lot of his singles, which I think is very interesting. He's, not to say like not a lot of black people talk about mental health, but he's one of those younger black men talking about mental health and making these singles that are successful where he's talking about mental health. And it's like, that's very interesting to me because that brings in a new conversation into rap where it's not like, oh, money, bitches, like, all this stuff that we're used to, but kind of like focusing on, okay, like the person and the influence that trauma has on an individual and just like the struggle of a young man nowadays. I mean, this has been going on for generations. That's why he put out that track over the Tupac beat, and it's still relevant to this day. He just updated it. But I think he's very open, and to me that's what makes a great artist, is being open and not being afraid to show your emotions, no matter how uncool it is to the younger generation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and to go off of that, ironically enough, I was going to pick Polo G too as the next one. Man, like I just feel like when I listen to his music, like with J. Cole, like, because I feel like sometimes you do have to bring them in the realm of other artists that are great, because like with Polo G, man, like it's not only like what he's saying, but it's how he's saying it, and you feel it. Like he doesn't write music you can't feel. Like I think that's, and like you're saying, right, like it is true. Like a lot of now, I feel like there are a lot of black male artists that are older who are talking about mental health. But come on, man, how many are younger black artists that are talking about mental health? And like some of it, I guess you could like I remember when Big Sean was talking about a lot of what he was going through and stuff, and I felt like even that was like sometimes like if you can't separate the streets from what you experienced, you end up creating like a romanticized version of trauma, right? So like, and whatever, I deal with this the same as well. Like when I go to Chicago, right, I'm hoodied up and I got jeans on and I got Jordans and I'm like, and whatever, yeah, like that's the style, right? And sometimes you confuse the style with like the fact that it's trauma. You're like, trauma isn't a style, it just happens to people. It's not like I'm not proud of the stuff I've been through, but I've been through it, right? So that's what helps tell the story. And I think that Polo G, like the way that he tells his story, like he has one line where he says like, I haven't, essentially his friend passed away and he says like, I haven't heard your voice in so long. It's like your voice is finally fading out, or like slowly fading out. And like that really hit me, right? Because my best friend passed away pretty recently. It's been about 5 or 6 years now, and like, man, it just like really stuck with me, because like that's like a universal concept. I feel like in Chicago, if you lost someone, or anywhere if you've lost someone, right, you're like, that is traumatic, and like you'd have to deal with that every day. It's not like people, the cliche like, oh over time these things they heal. It's not true. There's no healing over time, but there is a way to really process the trauma and try to use it to benefit you. But otherwise, like, you still experience it. And I think that Polo G does a good job of like, he talks about the streets, right? And he doesn't over glorify it. Like he says like, this is what we do, this is what it is. He's not like saying I love it, right? He's just saying like, I love my guys. Absolutely. I got my guys back. I got anybody who's had me since day one. And that's that's a Chicago thing. Like loyalty is huge in Chicago. So like, I like that he raps about undertones of loyalty and mental health, like you're saying, and it still sounds good, right? And I think to your point, like not everybody could do it, right? Like I think that there's some artists that, like, I don't think that I want to hear, and it's not saying that like Wayne isn't great, but I don't want to hear Lil Wayne do an album about like mental health, I guess, and not in a rude way. Like I'm not saying like he has every right to do it, and I'm sure I would support it, right? I would absolutely support it, and I'm sure that it would sound pretty good, but it's not his style, right? So that's not something that you're used to. Versus Polo G, like he just normalizes it so much in mainstream modern music that it just feels like it's always been like this, right? Like that everybody's been talking about mental health for this long, because he's just so comfortable with it at this point, where it's like, again, like, look, it's not a braggadocious thing. It's not something to be ashamed of. It is what it is. Like, this is who we are as people. And when you come from Chicago, we do have a little bit of extra baggage with some of the stuff that we go through, because most of us do see our friends in caskets at 14, right? We're the ones walking them down. So it's like, it is a little tough, but hearing him kind of represent Chicago gives me a lot of hope, because you know, we got hit with that R. Kelly situation recently, which was upsetting for Chicago music. I'm still upset about it. And again, right, like with influence, like you just want to make sure that in anything you do as we progress as human beings, like Polo G, I feel like he has a good head on his shoulders. And I don't know him personally, right? I would love to, but I don't know him personally. But I just think that from his music, you could tell a lot about a person, because he's not trying to force anything. And sometimes with music, you do force it. And I'm a victim of that too, right? Like sometimes whatever you drink, you have a couple of drinks, you start talking about things that you're just like, they're just stuck in your head. That's what you talk about. But no, man, it's good to see Polo G representing Chicago and like really doing his thing with the music industry, because we needed somebody. I feel like Chicago, like we have Kanye West, but like, you know, some of his external things have kind of made him a little bit, what's the word? Like, I just feel like,
I think he's just bigger than rap, you know?
Yeah.
Like, in terms of rap, he's a little bit bigger. He just has so many layers, you know?
Yeah.
And he's a little, not to say dated, but he's, you know, he's been in the game for 20 years. He's a veteran in the game. Like, but I mean, Kanye West, like, he stays sonically, like, on point all the time. Like, all his albums till this day. Even that's another thing about Kanye, man. He has like different phases of sound in his albums. Like they all sound very different, and it's like he does a great job at it. And that's why everybody is like mad that he didn't drop his album, because it's like once he drops his album, everybody, all the young heads in hip hop are gonna try to sound like him and do his thing. And it's like, you know, because he is a pioneer in rap. Like not even in rap, in music. Like I'll say that. Like, you know, he did a gospel album and it was great.
No, and again, right, like you're like, Kanye's a cool one too, man. Like he represents Chicago well. I think that whatever, like his stuff with the most recent political stuff, I think is what gets him a lot of a negative rep. And I think that also, like, I've seen a lot of things recently with like some interviews with some prominent black figures, and I think that some of them, it depends on who you are, right? Like some of them don't like Kanye, and I think that produces kind of a negative narrative. And I think that some of them are like, dude, first of all, like Kanye, again, he's transcended music, right? So it's no longer, it's kind of like LeBron in basketball. Like some people just can't stay in that lane. That's not their lane to stay in. Like Kanye was never meant to stay in music, I feel like his entire life he's talked about designing and fashion. You're not about to he's an artist. His lane is art, right? And with art, there's art in anything. That's the thing, right? Like there's art in politics, there's art in music, there's art in your day-to-day life, like whether like talking about the beauty of the struggle, right? That's art in itself, in and of itself. But yeah, no, Kanye's another good one. But it is good to see like some people that aren't Kanye West do well in Chicago, because it's not an easy place to like make music, man. It's really tough to get people to like really to vibe with you and more so to feel you and respect you. That does transcend a little bit of like, you have to be bigger than your neighborhood to do that. So I definitely have much respect for that.
Yeah, man. Like, and man, people they don't underestimate anymore, but for a while people, thought Chicago wasn't really the place for music. It's really produced a lot of, in the past 10 years, 20 years, a lot of great artists, a lot of huge artists that have changed the genre, like Herbo. I don't know if you listen to him. To me, he's one of the most lyrical, like street dudes. I'm gonna say probably one of my favorites out of Chicago. Like that dude can spit.
Yeah.
And the thing is, man, he talks about some of the realest stuff, like the stuff he's been through, man.
Yeah, that one that he did on Flex, that freestyle, and whoever has not checked that out, I don't know if you could drop a link in whatever.
It'll be below.
Thank you. But no, like that, he's tight, man.